when the world has got you down. And
Alzheimer's sucks. It's an equal opportunity disease that chips away at everything we hold dear. And to date, there's no cure. So until there is, we continue to fight with the most powerful tool in our arsenal, love. This is Love Conquers Alls, a real and really positive podcast that takes a deep dive into everything Alzheimer's, the good, the bad, and everything in between. And now, here are your hosts, Susie Singer-Carter and me, Don Priest.
Hi, everybody. I'm Susie Singer-Carter.
And I'm Don Priest, and this is Love Conquers Alls. Hello, Susan.
Hi, Donald. How you doing?
I'm swell, terrific, as they say in the business. But boy, you've been off to a kick start on this new year, right? You've had a lot of good times.
Don't get me started. The name of our next show is Don't Get Me Started.
Yes, don't get me started. All of our ailments.
All about how do you feel today? Don't get me started.
Don't get me started.
I guarantee you, who doesn't want to talk about their illnesses, right? Like, come on.
We all do. It's the most fun thing ever.
It's the most fun thing ever.
I was telling you, it's tradition. When I go golfing, the first thing we do before we tee off is everyone lists their ailments. That's the first thing we do.
Get it out.
Yep.
Get it out.
And now we know.
And everybody's is worse than yours.
Absolutely.
Right?
In fact,
and
nobody even listens to you. No one even listens to you.
No, they can't wait to say theirs. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't even know what you've had, and I've been with you this whole time. So, I'm not paying attention.
Great. Did I mention I have really, really contagious pink eye?
Yes, over and over and over again.
Don't get pink eye, you guys. It's awful. I look like Rocky.
Yeah.
Like literally, my cheeks were out like this. Like, who knew it was so invasive? Let's just talk about getting older, like how everything affects us so badly. Like my little granddaughter she's the one that gave it to me. She's, they're in a petri dish. Let's talk about kids in the petri dish. I've gotten everything, the norovirus from them, which is, that's real fun.
That's a party.
That's a party in the bathroom.
In every way.
And then I got RSV, and then I got pink eye. And the pink eye, Eden, she's 4, she got over it like in a day. Mm-hmm. I'm going on 4 weeks now. I'm still waking up with red eyes and gunk. Delicious. Yeah. Anywho, but you know what? Here we are. We're alive, knock wood. We're having great conversation. We're making a great documentary. No Country for Old People is coming in for the, we're coming in at the finish line. So that's exciting. And so we'll keep you posted on that. But we have a great guest, which I can't believe we haven't had on before this, because we've been like parallel colleagues for the past, I think, is it 4 years now, right?
It's got to be.
3 years,
I would
3.5, 4
think
years.
So, yeah.
And we also, our journeys, although they're different, but of course, caregivers' journeys, at the end of the day, we have so much in common, right? And, but we both lost our darling mommies in 2022. And we're going through that, post-caregiving weird space, and also missing our mamas like crazy, and trying to figure out how we live the rest of our lives, without our greatest fans, and the people we love so much. So we'll talk about that too. So anyway, without further ado, Dawn, why don't you do a delightful introduction?
And so I will. Christina Keys was living her best life, enjoying a successful career. She was financially and spiritually healthy and happy, when in 2013, her beloved mother suffered a devastating stroke and was given a 1% chance to live. In a blink of an eye, Christina went from carefree career woman to full-time caregiver. With Christina's dogged and loving support, her mother survived. But after 4 years, Christina was bankrupt financially, emotionally, mentally, and physically. And suddenly, she was faced with a diagnosis of her own. Her body was shutting down from the stress, and she was given 6 months to live. She knew she had to completely change her life. and she did. But she decided not to only transform her own life, but to help other caregivers change theirs too. Christina Keys is now a sought-after public speaker, community builder, storyteller, change agent, collective visionary, and the director of community growth at caregiving.com. Her mission is to make sure caregivers everywhere are seen, heard, valued, appreciated, and are never alone. And we can't wait to hear more about her remarkable transformation and journey. So, let's say hello to Christina Keys. Hello, Christina.
Hi guys, how are you?
My sister.
Excited to be here today and to be able to talk with y'all.
We are. We're
thrilled to have
ditto.
you.
Right back at you. Yeah, we like I said before in the intro, like we've just been sort of parallel, and that you've done incredible things in this space of caregiving, which is daunting, because you think you must be completely exhausted and at the end of your rope, and yet here you are, resilient and picking yourself back up and just throwing yourself back into the community and giving it all you got. So I'm really interested in that. But why don't for people that don't know you, I don't know who that would be, but for the people that don't know you, give us a little background, a little more detail than what Dawn was saying, in terms of your caregiving journey up until 2022.
Absolutely. Well, as Dawn mentioned, Mom had her stroke in 2013. Until then, I had built a successful career in tech and loved it. I was playing on 3 softball teams. I was doing amazing things. I had a long-term partner, and life was good. And Mom had a stroke. I remember that morning she had called me. We were talking on the phone. Everything seemed fine. I was going to call her back later that day, and I was actually in the grocery store shopping with my personal trainer, right? And
like you do.
right. And because I could afford things like a personal trainer back then, right? And so I got this call from the hospital saying my mother had had a stroke, and they weren't expecting her to live. And I got in my car, and I drove the 3 hours up there, and I walked in, and, she's hooked up to all this life support, and, they gave her 1% chance to live for that first 30 days, and I lived in that hospital with her for almost 4 months. And when I say lived in the hospital, it was out of a suitcase, in that hospital chair that so many caregivers are used to. I went home once a week to take a shower. I smelt glorious, right? And that first 30 days, it was like, from minute to minute, we didn't know if she was going to live. And I had never, I don't have children, so I hadn't been in a place of caring for anybody other than my cats and dogs before. But here I have my mom, and I'm about to lose her. I don't know what's going to happen. And so when I was in that hospital, I kept asking, what do I do? How do I care for her? Because she's paralyzed from the neck down, right? She's having seizures. She's got cognitive issues, memory issues. I had to teach her how to talk. They were trying to teach her with like these stick figure flashcards. And I'm like, no, love is going to be the motivator. So I printed off, I think it was like 300 pictures of our life and had somebody pick them up, and I made them into flashcards. And that's how she learned to talk. And I wheeled her out of that hospital, and they gave me a list of in-home care facilities and also like senior living communities and in-home care people. They didn't tell me it wasn't covered by insurance. They didn't tell me what in-home care actually was. And I'm wheeling her out of the hospital thinking we're set. Mom had been a manufacturing engineer. I was in tech. We're fine. We both have 401ks. She's got great insurance. I wheel her out of the hospital, find out none of that matters, right? And we are, all of a sudden, a year and a half later, we've gone through both of our 401ks. We went from upper middle class to poverty level. Within a year and a half, I'm standing in line at food banks, and just paying for my mom's care, right? I had to learn how to hire family caregivers so I could work. I remember in my Facebook memories, one of them came up, and I didn't even know what a caregiver was. My Facebook memory said, my first post was, does anybody know if they have anything like babysitters before adults? I didn't even know it was called a caregiver. Like, right. That's how out of touch I was with all this. And here I was entrusted to care for my mother, right? And so we did this journey along the way, and we learned along the way, me and Mom, and we kind of developed this thing of Team Mom, when things were hard. and things changed. Things would get good and things would get bad, and the dynamics got different. I think me becoming that mom role was very hard for her, and it was also very hard for me. And the financial, it's funny because I was talking to somebody the other day who'd just gone through losing their partner, right? And she went from 2 incomes to 1 income. I'm like, hey, I can teach you how to live in poverty and survive and grow, because I learned that from caregiving,
Right.
and it gets better. And so, yeah, I think that whole journey really taught me that, first of all, finding out that there was no resources in my town, that there was nobody to turn to. I thought I was supposed to ask the doctors. I mean, just like any of us, like we thought we're going to the hospital, we're seeing all these doctors, like, why wouldn't they know? Why wouldn't they be the experts? We don't know, right? And so it's interesting when I did have to leave my career, I had to change careers, and winding up in the senior and retirement industry and finding all of these resources and all this support in my own town was like, holy crap.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't even know this was here,
Why would you?
And yeah, exactly. And, that I remember that last day at my job I had given, it was 2017. I started the care journey with my mom, March 16th, 2013 at 3:42 p.m. And February of 2017 is when I left my job. And I remember I had given like a month's notice. And that last day, I was just milking it because I didn't want to leave. That was like, what was that going to mean for me? What was my identity? I wasn't going to be the career woman.
Right.
I was just going to be the caregiver. And I remember I'm sitting there and everybody got off at 5 and it's like 6 p.m. and I'm like frantically putting information into Salesforce, and here comes the CEO and all the managers. They're like, Christina, what are you doing here? And I'm like, oh, I just got to put this information in. They're like, you can go. And I didn't want to leave. That was like the longest elevator ride of my life, because I knew as soon as those elevator doors opened, I was no longer like the Christina, the career woman, or the Christina anything. I was just Christina, the lost caregiver, once those doors opened. Right. And so, I went to that doctor's appointment with my insurance that I was going to lose soon. And they said, your body's literally shutting down from the stress. You're sleeping, 5 to 10 hours a week. You've gained like 100 pounds. You've got diabetes. You've got high blood pressure. You'll be lucky to live 6 months. And I'm going to be honest with you, as a caregiver, I think we've all had that moment where it's like, we want out, and I think, it wasn't like a suicidal thought, but it was like finally like a way out where I don't have to feel guilty. Like my body's just taking me out. I'm not taking myself out. So it's fair, right? And, I really had to make that choice of like, am I going to live, and how am I going to save my life and also care for mom too? So I think that's really when the game completely changed, was that day when I made that decision of like, okay, I'm going to do this. And I've got to do it with like the first act of self-care, which was 30-second act of taking a blood pressure pill and texting a friend that I had taken it. It all started with that 30-second act, saving my life and changing how I cared for my mom's life.
So
too,
can I ask you about that, which is it's very it resonates with me what you're saying very much. My body wasn't shutting down. I didn't, I am the girl that will just keep going and going and going and going and going. And I think that I've never gotten so sick as I have in the past year. And I think my body's just catching up with living on adrenaline for so long.
Right.
But you said just a caregiver, right? So you walked out with that word, just a caregiver, that concept. And then you had to make a choice between, living and not living. What was more attractive? What was the motivator for that? What gave you the final decision to go, I'm going to take that blood pressure pill? Like, was it your mom? Was it you? Or was it a combo of the two?
Wow. And I might cry.
That's
so.
okay. I'll cry. I'll be right behind you.
We do all the time.
I cry all the time.
Yeah. My mom was just a kick-ass woman. She was amazing, and she worked her way up from Rosie the Riveter to like one of the highest, people, in aerospace engineering, as a woman. And, I'm a Keys woman. I couldn't just give up. I watched her go through so much stuff. And of all people, that wouldn't have been the person I could give up on, and who was going to take care of her.
Right.
And plus, you know what? I didn't want that to be the end of my story. I didn't want to have to go through all that just for that to be the end. Like, this can't be the end. And I got to tell you, like, I don't know if it's, God, Buddha, Larry from the convenience store, whatever it is up there, like, that's not the guy I believe in. That's going to take me through all of that crap. And, like, then it's just shit. You just die,
right,
So I just knew that wasn't going to be the end of my story. I didn't know how it was going to end or what was going to be the middle part, but I was going to do everything I could to change the direction it was going. So.
And that's the last thing our parents would want for us, is
right.
for you to destroy your life, looking after them. That's probably I mean, if she knew that, I mean,
right.
I don't know if she was aware of that that would be the last thing. No, she wants you to thrive. Not
right.
only, yes, to help her too, but
right.
for yourself. You're her child. And,
right.
and for her to have known that would have been horrifying.
Yeah,
I
I think that's true for most. Just to throw that out there, there are parents that aren't as lucky as we are to have loving parents that wouldn't. Because my mom said to me, you got to live your life. You got to
right.
put me in a home. When she'd have her moments of lucidity, and so but that is not the case for everyone, and we are aware of that. We know that, and we know that adds extra stress because it's like. That becomes a big issue, and how
right.
and that's a whole nother conversation. Just wanted to acknowledge
But
that.
you knew your mother wouldn't have wanted that.
Christina knew.
Yeah.
You knew that.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'm glad you took your blood pressure medicine. Yeah. And I know you're glad you did, and I know a lot of people are glad you did, and I know that you now. Isn't it funny that you said I'm just going to leave here as just a caregiver? By the way, I used to think I used to think the term was caretaking until I didn't even know there was a term caregiver.
It used to be.
I thought it was like, I'm a caretaker. That was what I thought because I didn't even know anything about it. I knew nothing, and you realize it's not caretaking; you're caregiving.
Right, and the thing is like if I would have known like what an honor it was to be a caregiver, if I would have known like how much it was going to change my life, how much it was going to introduce me to like a whole different like level of love, a whole different like side of me, like how much it was going to enhance and bless my life, like I would have never said like just a caregiver. I would have ran to that opportunity. I would have been like, here's my 2-second notice, like I'm going to go be a caregiver now. And I had no idea, and none of us do. None of us have any idea. We know that somebody we love is having a hard time or there's changing and we want to step up because we love them. None of us understand what we are getting in for. I mean, even if we read 1 million books, we really wouldn't understand. And I talk to professionals all the time. I talked to this one guy, very big guy in the industry, president of a very large organization, and he said, Christina, I used to be like the keynote speaker everywhere. Everybody hired me everywhere to talk about, families and caregiving and all this other stuff. And then I wound up having to take care of my own mother and father, and what I realized is I didn't know shit.
Exactly.
And you just don't, right? You just don't until you do, right?
Exactly. So, if you knew, you wouldn't have had the transformation that you did. So right.
Oh, yeah.
So none of us do. None of us do.
Right.
I mean, back to what you were saying. I had I remember being at a family dinner. And an older cousin of mine was there who had lost his mom to Alzheimer's, and mom was there, and she was still walking, but had her all, and it was the hard part because it was like having a baby, because she had no filters and she wanted to, and the whole thing, right? And so I remember him saying to me, ugh, you're so lucky. If I could have another day with my mom. And I thought, I didn't know the gravity of that sentence at the time.
You don't.
I didn't.
You don't. Because when you're in it, like, let's be honest, like caregiving isn't always beautiful and loving. You're not always grateful for that moment. I mean, half the time, it's great. You're having a great moment with them. And then the other half, they're throwing crap at you or telling you you're not good enough or, You know, you never know. It could change every 15
right.
minutes. You know what I mean? So, and in the thick of it, when you haven't slept for 3 days or you've been in the hospital with them and you've got doctors and nurses and people that aren't listening to you, like, no, it's not this glorious, wonderful thing. But I totally get that. Like, if even today, like if knowing everything I know about caregiving and if God or anybody said to me like, hey, I'm going to give you the hardest day of caregiving, like the crappiest day of caregiving you've ever experienced, but you can have one more day with your mom. Sign me up.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's weird. As you're talking, I'm thinking about, because I've had 2 babies, right? And I told my mom after the first baby, you lied, because she told me it wasn't that bad. She goes, if I told you it was what it really was like, would you have done it? And I was like, because it's horrific, right? And you're like, but to me, in a way, it's such a metaphor, you know, because the hell that you go through to get what you get, and it's all worth it, and it's all worth it, and there's really actually nothing better to me than caring for other people that I mean, that is the biggest gift you can give yourself at the end of the day, because there's nothing you can't, all the stuff and, you know, material, and I love it, don't get me wrong, fashionista, love it, you know, I like to travel first class, but you know what, you can't take it with you. You can only you'll have your feelings at the end of your life, you'll have your memories, you'll have your peace of mind, and right?
Yeah, and when we're at the end, I mean, what are we going to think about? We're going to think about the moments of love. We're going to think about the people we loved and those moments that we shared with those special people. We're not going to think about, you know, all the things we own.
No.
You know?
No.
So,
No.
and I think like the caregiving, it really gives us a whole different level and understanding of what unconditional love is. I mean, true unconditional love, you know?
Amen.
So,
Amen. You know, and also when you were talking a little earlier, you know, even though, yes, your mom had a stroke, it's not Alzheimer's, but, you know, the stages of that kind of progressive disease, for anybody, it's the same thing. And your sense of, you know, your experience with you know, anticipatory grief, you know, starting from day one when they told you she had like, you know, a day to live or whatever it was, right? So all you could do was live on the edge of your sword, right? You were like constantly wondering, when is it going to drop? What's going to happen? Is she going to die today? Is she going to die today? Is she going to die today?
Right.
I mean, I know that I was waiting for that phone call every day for 14 years.
Right. And then when she did die, it was like, wait, how did that really happen?
Right.
Like, she was supposed to die a million times before and she never did. Like, we beat the odds for 10 years. Like, what? I mean, I think me and my mom were in complete disbelief when they said it's really time, and we had really tried everything.
Yeah.
You know, like, well, no, it had been time a million times before. Like at one point in the care journey, I mean, this is how I wound up having to like leave my job, because the doctor said she's going to die. We're in the hospital. We've got the family around, you know, they're giving the last rites, the last prayers or whatever. And everybody says their goodbyes, and mom says like, you know, stay with me and hold my hand. Will I go? The doctor says she's not going to make it through the night. So I fall asleep. She falls asleep. You know, it's all going to be this peaceful, beautiful passing, right? You know, and my mom wakes up. She says, I'm not done yet. You know, that was in 2017. So, you know, come December of, it was actually the day after Thanksgiving is when they told us she was going on hospice. It's like, what? And then when it was really happening, like, wait, something's going to turn here,
right?
You know,
because it always did.
It always
did.
Same with my mom. Oh my, it's very similar, you know, and it's part of my documentary is that, you know, because of the ageism and ableism that is so rampant in not only in our healthcare system but in our culture, right? So people want to write off older people. All the time, and it's like they're dying. They're telling you they're dying all the time, which is so cruel to us, because chances are they may not. And we did the same thing. My mom was supposed to die within 2 hours back, you know, 6 months before she died, and we called the whole family in. We're doing vigil for 4 days, like I'm
Yeah.
no sleep. And finally my nephew goes, Nanny's not dying. My mom is up, she's smiling, she's hungry. Like, what is going on? Like, this is what goes on in our elder care because they are not a priority, because they're not big money makers, and so that's the problem. And that is a residual, effect on caregivers, because we are constantly going through that anticipatory grief, which is, I'm telling you, to me, that is the worst. It is the worst, because our cortisol is like all over right?
Yeah. At any minute, like it's like this living in this state of at any minute, like it's not like something could go bad. Like at any minute, somebody I love could die.
Right.
Like if you are not a family caregiver, if you have not lived in that state for a continuous amount of years, and even now, like being away from it for so long, and then having that experience the other day with Terry, I forgot how much it just wrecks your whole central nervous system and your mind and your body. It is not a fun way to live.
It's not, and it's not healthy. It's not.
Can you tell our audience about Terry? Because I don't think we know who Terry is and what your situation is right now.
Yeah, so Terry was, and I believe just is, the love of my life. Just an amazing person. Terry, when I first met him, he knew I loved John Cusack. We met online. When we met in person, he showed up at my house with a boombox playing the Peter Gabriel song outside. And
which one? Which song?
In Your Eyes, the one from the movie Say
From the
Anything.
movie,
okay.
So because he knew I loved John Cusack, and just an amazing guy. We had a great relationship, and after caregiving really took a toll on our relationship. My caregiving with my mom, I became a completely different person, and I think by 2019 we had kind of, we started dating 2002, 2019 we had kind of run our course, and we decided not to be boyfriend and girlfriend and just best friends, right? But of course, because of caregiving, I didn't have the money to move out right then, so we were roommates, and but then he had a stroke 5 months later, and I became his caregiver, and then he had another stroke, and so he needed more care, and I had to help facilitate, get him on disability, and get him long-term care benefits, because you don't get them just because you're on disability, right? And then 2022 came, and my father, I was so busy focusing on my mother all the time. My father lived in California, and April of 2022, my father died.
Gosh.
And it's like, hey, wait a minute, you weren't supposed to die. And so I'm trying to grieve, and my ma, she had known my dad since she was 4 years old, right? So she's got memory problems. She's asking continually, where's dad, right? And so I've got that happen April 30th. Terry had his last stroke May 5th, right? And then, so I'm in the hospital. No, my cousin died May 5th. Terry had his last stroke May 9th. My mom went into the hospital, and then I had to put Terry in assisted living in June. I had to take down our house and close out our house because it was being taken over by Medicaid, given over to the state.
I was just going to ask you that. Did you have to pay down all his money?
Yeah, and so here I am, like, grieving my father, taking care of my mother, working full time, going to the skilled nursing center to see Terry, and since I can't sleep, going to the house and packing up our house, and I mean, just all of these things, and then I had to move him in October. I found him a better placement. I moved him, and then November came. Mom went on hospice, and then she died December, and so now Terry's in an adult family home, and I still go see him. We still have that partnership. He does have a state guardian now, and which is better, because honestly, the whole state insurance and Medicaid spin down is so complicated. If you make one mistake, and I wasn't going to rely on. I mean, I'm very aware that I know a lot in the industry. I'm very aware that I'm very competent, but I'm also very aware that I don't know enough that I don't want to risk making a mistake. This is somebody else's life, and so somebody who I love, right? And so,
can I just interject on that real sec, because that's so important, that point you just made, because it's so complicated, and even the experts don't really know everything. So like, it's hard. So I mean, I think that's an important point that you just made, because you can easily make a mistake without, unwittingly, and so.
Right. Yeah. So I don't hands-on care for Terry anymore. I still go interact with them. If there's some problems with him, I go and, kind of smooth that out, because I'm the only one who can get through with him. I do go visit with him and take him on trips and stuff. But it was very interesting the other day, because there isn't a lot of emergencies anymore with Terry, right? And, I've had a year. Mom died December 28th of 22. I've worked really, really hard to bring down my cortisone levels, to learn how to sleep, to learn how to be at peace, to learn how to not freak out every time the phone rings. I mean, there's so much stuff that I had to do to get out of fight or flight mode. And it was interesting the other day, I had a situation where I did have that moment, that one of those caregiver moments with Terry, where I felt that, again, that, somebody might die or something really bad might happen, where my cortisone levels shot up, the whole fight or flight thing. And it was so foreign to my body, I didn't realize, and all I could think of when I finally calmed down, which it took 5 hours for my body to calm down from that. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even, it was a 15-minute situation that resolved itself in 15 minutes, right? And before, there was no just 15 minutes. There was, another hour, another nighttime, another, that we were full-time caregiving, right? And all I could think was, it was like this moment of shock, feeling that in my body and not realizing it was that plus multiplied by 10 for 10 years in my body. Right. And then also sort of grieving for that person who I was, that she was going through that, and then grieving for all caregivers that our bodies are going through that. And it's no wonder why so many caregivers get sick, and it's no wonder why the statistics for caregivers are so insane. I think 30% of caregivers pass before the person they're caring for, and 35% of caregivers pass within 5 years after the person they're caring for, and then 65% of caregivers that are over the age of 70 pass before the person they're caring for. It's because our bodies are going through so much stress, and we're not going. The last thing we want to do is go to the doctors, and when we do, we hate doctors by that time, because
we don't trust
blown
them.
The people we love off, so much.
Yeah.
And so, it was very interesting to have that moment of holy crap, this is what I lived in for so long.
What it is to me is it's PTSD, because you are right.
Oh yeah.
That's what it is, and there really should be a sort of like a debriefing, with after you are through for this particular journey of caregiving, because that stop, and I know everybody talks about it, the day that, or right after someone that you've been caring for long term, and now who are you, and what are you?
Nobody talks about
and
that.
Also you get used to, it's like when you live in an abusive relationship. Right. It's a weird, not to relate the two, but in a way it is, because the emotions are so high for so long that you become used to it, and that becomes your comfort zone.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we don't understand. We don't understand when we're quiet inside, when we're not having that massive energy inside of us, when we're not experiencing that anxiety, when we're feeling peace. That first time we're feeling peace, it's wait, am I bored? We don't understand any of that.
Well, it could be depressing,
right?
almost. It's right? You could feel anxious about it, because who am I? What am I supposed to do now? What is, what's my purpose?
What's my purpose?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I'm really fortunate in the fact that I know my purpose, but still I did not, I still had that moment of who the hell am I?
Oh, totally.
And nobody talks about recovering from being a caregiver. They talk about the grief. And I remember and I know a lot of people in the industry, and I remember putting on my social media, what did you guys do to recover from recover from the caregiving. Now, when my father died, I was lucky enough to be able to go get grief counseling. So I know the difference between grief, right? And so everything everybody shared was all about the grief. No, there's differences, right? When your phone rings after the person you love passes that you cared for, and your anxiety shoots up, right? And you thinking like you need to have your phone all the time, because that was the hotline for mom. I remember like the first time I went on a date after my mom passed, like here I'm out with this wonderful man, he's talking, all I'm thinking is like, oh my God, like I didn't have to drive my own car. Like I'm not on call. Like my phone is in my purse. Like I don't even remember a gosh darn thing the guy said. Like I don't have to I didn't have to pay anybody to care for my mom. I mean, there was so much stuff that went along with it, but there is so much stuff when it comes to recovering as a caregiver. It is not just the grief.
100%.
And people don't understand it. And trying to deal with that grief plus bring down your cortisone levels. It is not easy to live in a state of somebody could die at any minute for 10 flipping years.
No.
How do you do that? And then all of a sudden you don't have to live like that anymore.
No.
How do you do that?
No,
But
right?
it's ingrained.
Nobody talks about
It's ingrained in you at that point. And,
Yeah.
So how do, let me ask you, it might be an odd question, like now as a caregiver and now somebody who that now is on the other side of that. What's the first thing for people that you would say to somebody who are about to enter this journey? What's the first thing they should do to start this journey, both at the beginning of caregiving and then after it's over? I don't know. It's a big question.
That's kind of a huge question. You got 3 hours, folks?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, just the first thing.
Right. If I would have known, personally, if I would have known about care coaches, as a caregiver, I would have hired a care coach immediately, right? And if you don't know what a care coach is somebody who's similar to a life coach, but they've been a caregiver before. They've been trained on how to coach you through on that care journey. So it would have saved me a crap ton of money. I would have made a heck of a lot less mistakes. They would have helped me learn how to talk to doctors and advocate for my mom. I mean, they would have taught me so much. They would have taught me about self-care a lot quicker than the people who are like, oh, put your oxygen mask on first, which I don't know about you, but when anybody says that, I'd like to throat punch them, because they don't follow up, right? But you ask a caregiver and they'll say like, put your oxygen mask on first, but then they'll tell you, where to buy it, how to put it on, all this other stuff. Nobody else does, right? And so for me, anybody starting out, I would say, first of all, find a care coach or find a support group. One of those two. If you can't afford a care coach, then find a support group. They're free. They're everywhere. If you don't know where to find them, you can easily go to caregiving.com or places like that, National Caregiver Alliance, places like that. Hope Dementia Support Group has a bunch of support groups, and you can find support groups and they're free. You're going to find people who are walking through the same journey as you, because your normal is going to become a completely different normal when you're a caregiver.
Right.
So I would say first thing is, understand that you're not alone. If you're new to caregiving, there's over 53 million family caregivers out there, and there are free support groups everywhere. So for the people who are after caregiving, what I would say, first of all, is be gentle with yourself, right? And secondly, you're going to have a different emotion every 5 seconds, and everything is going to be new to you. How your body feels is going to be new to you. And it's okay that it's not just grief, and again, you want to stick with people who've been through that journey before. If you've been through the caregiving journey, you probably know people who've been through the journey after caregiving. Talk to them, because if you're talking to people who have just gone through grief, but they haven't done the caregiving journey, they're really not going to understand what you've been living through, that place of they're going to die for all these years, and then they finally do, right?
Right.
That's what I would say to folks who have gone through that. And it's not easy. Please just think about how loving you were to the person you cared for.
Right.
Please try to show yourself just even a tenth of the kindness that you showed them, because what you're walking through is very difficult.
That's good. Really good advice. So I think that's a great transition to caregiving.com and what you are such a huge part of, and that's how I met you, and the caregiving.com champions program and what you're doing with that, which I was a part of, and I've put it on hold because of the documentary. I just can't, they're both very important.
Big things,
they're both important, and but I am always cheerleading you on, and I consider myself still part of that community, and I always will. So there, and but so tell us about caregiving.com, what it does, how to find it, what the caregiving.com champion program is, and break it down a little bit.
All right, I'm going to break it down for
girl.
us. So, caregiving.com is a place where family caregivers can go to get all kinds of information, whether you're looking for podcasts, whether you're looking for articles, whether you're, if you're a caregiver for somebody with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, if you're a caregiver who's somebody who's my age, millennial caregiver, male, female, whatever, you're going to find community there. You're going to find information there. There's trainings there. There's video there. There's everything you could need there. One of the other things that we offer is the caregiving.com champions. So when I came onto caregiving.com, they were just a digital platform. And I had built, when I changed my career, I went into the senior and family caregiver industry, and I created a hyper-local nonprofit here called Loving Them Forward, and that model was so different that within 2 years we had won an award for being one of the best resources for family caregivers and seniors in our community, right? And so caregiving.com found out about it and approached me and said, how would you like to duplicate that across the United States? And I said, absolutely. And I said, here's the caveat. I'm not going to hire salespeople and these BDM people who don't know anything. I would like to, bring on family caregivers who've been through it and who understand, what the difference is of resources, and I don't want to charge people money for, advertising. I really want to make some different changes in the industry. And so that's what we're doing is with these champions is we're going into communities and we're building hyper-local sets of not only resources, but actual community, support. So, I'll give you an example. I went to Indianapolis. I didn't know a soul. I hired a champion there. They are kind of like the eyes and the ears of the city. They introduced me to 25 resources. I showed up in that town. Within 2 weeks, I had changed that to 154 resources, everything from, micro resources to large resources. We had put together a 43,000 square foot, event, an expo for family caregivers. And that we did that within I think that was 2 months, and completely changed what was going on. And what was the best compliment about that, what made me know that we had made some changes, there was a lot of heavy hitters in that town, people who were paid to network in that town, were paid to know the resource in that town, that came up to me personally and said, I didn't even know half of these resources were in our town. Right? Because what happens is, over here there's 30, over here there's 30, and over here there's 30, but they don't get together, right? And all of these people are marketing to seniors or veterans or people with disabilities. Nobody understands that, the people that are signing the contracts and bringing these people in are the invisible caregivers behind them, right? They don't know how to market to those people. So, I go into a town with the champions and I bring these people together and I educate them on why it's important to see those family caregivers, right? And when I leave that town, I don't just walk away. I leave with an opportunity for them to have a place to continue to grow, whether it be a monthly networking meeting or a social media group or whatever. And so those towns grow and they flourish, and, they're able to understand how to connect with family caregivers now, not just market to seniors. And we've done that in over, 100 different communities across the United States. And we have an initiative coming up this year called Keys to the Community, where we're sending me out and, growing even more cities across the United States. And really, the champions are going to play a really big part of that too. So, yeah, I think it's fun because I get to go all over and, just build these communities that are supporting family caregivers. And I get to meet a lot of family caregivers who are, having the same struggles that me and you had, and they don't have to do that anymore. Right? We've all struggled to find stuff in our own backyard.
Of course, of course. So what does a champion do, in a nutshell? Just how can, if somebody would like to participate in this program, how can they do that?
So a champion in a nutshell, you are the eyes and the ears of your city, right? You'll connect with me. It's a contract position, really works around your schedule. It's very part-time. You can be as involved as you want. And, obviously I'm not in Hawaii, but if you live in Hawaii and you're a champion, you would be the eyes and ears of that city. You introduce me to a few key people, or even just tell me about those people. Me and the community growth team take it from there. Some champions participate in events. Some champions participate in networking groups. It's really what you want to do, what your bandwidth is. And if you want to be a part of that, you can email champions@caregiving.com, or you can go to the caregiving.com website and find out more information. Either way, we're hiring. I think I've got 100 more slots for champions right now, because we're growing, and in some of those places, we've got so many cities. There's 385 different metropolitan areas across the United States, and I've got a lot more work to do.
Yeah.
So
That's amazing.
yeah.
And it's so, and just to extend what you just said, is like, it's also really great for you as a champion, because you have a built-in, tribe, as it were, that you can lean on at any time, and everyone is really, really giving and open, because that's the nature of caregivers anyway. So right, so it's a win-win.
Right. Well, and those champions, yeah, for sure. That like these people become my family. You know what I mean? And these aren't just people I work with.
Yeah.
We become each other's support, and it's just a beautiful thing. At Christmas, I thought I was going to spend Christmas alone. I spent Christmas with a lot of people, the champions, who were going through some of the same stuff, losing their family members at the same time. And so it's a beautiful thing. And I love the work I get to do. My mom was very involved in the work I got to do. Any of the press gigs I did, or any time a camera crew came in, she turned into an instant movie star here.
Of course she did.
And she was very, very supportive. And she made me promise to continue, to do this work.
Yeah.
And every time I get to do this work, it's like, it's like this love letter I'm writing to my mom, like, you weren't a burden. I love you.
Yeah.
And this is what we keep getting to do.
Can I just I just want to say about you, Christina, that you have been consistent since I've known you, and you have, you've always such a support. Like, I don't know how you keep up with social media, because if I post something, you respond and you support it and you share it, and you're just extraordinary that way. And I don't know how you do it, because I think, I wish that I think that I'm a supportive tribe member, but I don't, sometimes I just get to the end, I'm like, I can't even look at social media right now, and I just think every time I do go on, there you are. And so, it's sort of priceless what you do, and you are consistent, and, every culture has its good players and bad players, and we don't know, but you are definitely one of the good players. And so I'm glad that you're at the forefront of it, because we need transparency with who we're dealing with, and because we're already going through enough shit, right? So just know that if you are interested, that Christina is for real. She's authentic. She's the real deal, and you're going to have a good time with her. You're going to have a party down for sure. You're going to have some good cries. I'm already crying with you. Yeah. And what else is life about, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I really appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you too. And thank you for what you do. I mean, the reason why I always share that stuff is because I see that stuff come across, and it's like, oh my God, the caregiver's got to know. I think about people like me when I first started, and people like you, like, we would have wanted to know about that. And I get so excited to be able to share that. So thank you for everything you do too.
Oh, my pleasure. I mean, I just, for me, my mission now is like, let's take care of us, our future us. And if we don't take care of our future us, we're in big poop, right? We are in big poop, because it's coming like this. We're gonna, right?
Exactly.
So that's my contribution right now is as a gift to our future selves, which isn't that far away. So for anybody, even if you're 20 years old, blink and you're 90.
Right.
So,
For sure.
well, I thank you so much. Was there anything else that we missed that you would want to chat about? That anything?
No, I just, thank you guys for having me on, and, make sure to check out caregiving.com, and feel free to connect with me on any socials, because I'd love to hear about any caregivers that are out there and any great work that's happening for caregivers, so I can share it.
Yes, and she
So-
will. She does.
I will.
She
I will.
She will, without question.
She does.
Yes, I will.
promise you that. All right. Well, thank you so much. And we do this podcast for no other reason because we love it, and because we want to share positive, perception of caregivers, positive perceptions of Alzheimer's for sure, and do away with the stigmas and bring it out, because this is what life is about, and we do it because we love our people that we care about, when we love our tribe. So, and that's
Right.
why is it, Dawn? Why?
That's why. Well, I know. Well, you know why? Because love is powerful.
Yes.
Love is contagious, and love conquers all. We thank everybody for listening, watching today. Please subscribe, join, all those things. Definitely visit Christina on caregiver.com, and
Caregiving.
we will absolutely. What did I say?
Caregiver.
Oh,
Caregiving.
I like caregiving better.
Me too.
At caregiving.com. And we will absolutely see you next time on Love Conquers All. Take care,
Take care,
everybody.
everybody.